Did Kandi Burruss witness something that was never meant to surface publicly? A story quietly spreading across social media has suddenly taken a darker turn, and fans can't look away. Todd Tucker, Porsha Williams, a private moment, and a reaction so unsettling that viewers are questioning everything they thought they knew. There was no official announcement, no dramatic reveal, no headline warning anyone what was coming. Instead, it was a single moment, subtle, unscripted, and impossible to ignore. Kandi's expression shifted. Her pauses lingered. The energy changed. And for many watching, it didn't feel like performance. It felt like realization. Almost immediately, long-standing rumors began resurfacing, this time with new weight. Names that had never been connected this closely were suddenly being spoken in the same breath. And what made the situation explode wasn't confirmation, it was silence. No denial. No clarification. Just unanswered questions stacking up by the minute. The internet doesn't wait for facts, it reacts to emotion. And when emotion shows up before explanation, speculation fills the gap fast. If this is nothing more than an internet rumor, then why does it feel so personal? And if it isn't, how close are we to the truth finally coming out? Because when reactions appear before words, it's rarely the end of the story. It's the beginning. What made this moment impossible to ignore was how ordinary it looked at first. There was no dramatic setup, no warning signs that something was about to shift. Kandi Burruss appeared the way she always does, composed, familiar, entirely in control. But as the live went on, viewers began sensing a subtle change that was difficult to explain yet impossible to dismiss. Her rhythm slowed, her focus drifted, and the space between her words seemed heavier than usual. At the same time, whispers were already moving quietly across social media. They weren't explosive rumors, and they didn't arrive with bold headlines. Instead, they traveled through comments, screenshots, and carefully worded posts that raised questions rather than accusations. Under normal circumstances, they might have disappeared just as quickly. But the timing made it different. The rumors appeared just hours before Kandi went live, and that coincidence alone set off alarms for viewers who were already watching closely. As the live continued, people noticed Kandi pausing mid-thought, rereading comments more than usual, and briefly glancing away from the screen as if recalculating what to say next. Nothing about it was dramatic, and that was exactly what unsettled the audience. It felt restrained, like someone holding back rather than acting out. The comment section changed almost immediately. Messages of curiosity turned into concern, and concern quickly evolved into pointed questions. The absence of humor stood out most. Kandi is known for diffusing tension, for addressing uncomfortable moments with wit or confidence. This time, neither arrived. Instead, there was a visible effort to stay measured, careful, and emotionally guarded. Viewers weren't reacting to tears or anger. They were reacting to control, the kind of control people use when something feels too close to speak about freely. That restraint gave new life to rumors that had previously been considered implausible. Names began appearing together more frequently: Todd Tucker and Porsha Williams. The connection wasn't new to longtime fans, but it had never carried this kind of weight before. As clips of the live began circulating on other platforms, they were reposted alongside speculation, not proof. Captions didn't make claims, they asked questions. And questions travel faster than answers online. What intensified the situation was what didn't happen next. There was no follow-up explanation, no quick denial issued to reset the narrative. The live ended quietly, leaving behind an uncomfortable stillness that viewers replayed again and again. Short clips were slowed down, analyzed frame by frame, and dissected in comment threads where tone mattered more than facts. Some viewers pushed back, arguing that reading meaning into body language was unfair and irresponsible. They pointed out exhaustion, pressure, and the constant scrutiny that comes with public life. Others disagreed just as passionately, insisting that the shift felt too specific to ignore. The divide formed quickly, splitting audiences into those urging patience and those convinced they had witnessed a genuine reaction to something deeply personal. As debate grew louder, attention slowly shifted toward Todd Tucker. His silence stood out, not because silence proves anything, but because of how unusual it felt in a moment this charged. In an environment where responses are often immediate, the lack of any visible reaction created more speculation than a denial ever could. Whether intentional or not, the absence became part of the story. Then came the resurfacing of old material, past interviews, casual remarks, moments that once felt harmless but now appeared in a different light. None of it offered confirmation, None of it crossed into evidence. Yet context began shaping perception, and perception online often arrives long before clarity. Viewers weren't looking for proof anymore. They were trying to make emotional sense of what they believed they had seen. As the whispers moved across platforms, they grew heavier with each retelling. Vague claims evolved into darker interpretations, layered with suggestions of betrayal and private conflict. Still, no source emerged. No confirmation appeared. Just escalation. And with every hour that passed without clarification, speculation became more convincing to those already leaning toward belief. Kandi's live remained the emotional center of the conversation. Supporters replayed it with empathy, insisting the scrutiny was unfair. Critics replayed the same footage and claimed the opposite, pointing out pauses, shifts in tone, and moments of hesitation as evidence of restraint rather than coincidence. The same material fueled entirely different conclusions, proving how little certainty was actually guiding the discussion. What began as curiosity slowly transformed into discomfort. Not the thrill of scandal, but the uneasy feeling that something private had slipped into public view before anyone was prepared to address it. And in that discomfort, the story gained momentum. Because uncertainty doesn't silence the internet, it feeds it. By the end of the day, what unsettled viewers most wasn't the rumor itself, but how believable it had started to feel without confirmation. Silence felt intentional. Timing felt suspicious. And emotion, once visible, became impossible to separate from interpretation. Whether fair or not, the narrative had already begun forming. And once that happens, the internet doesn't easily let go. And this was only the beginning. As the conversation stretched into the next day, the tone online shifted noticeably. What had started as curiosity slowly hardened into fixation. People weren't just reacting anymore, they were waiting for clarification, for an explanation, for a single sentence that could stabilize the narrative that had begun to spin on its own. Instead, nothing arrived. That absence became the loudest detail of all. In digital spaces where responses are often immediate and carefully crafted, the lack of any official acknowledgement felt deliberate to many observers. Even those who initially dismissed the rumors began questioning the silence. Not because silence confirms anything, but because it left too much room for interpretation. And interpretation, once unleashed, rarely stays contained. New versions of the original clips began circulating, longer and less edited. Viewers claimed these cuts revealed additional moments that had been overlooked. Slight changes in posture, eye movements that suggested distraction, pauses that now felt more intentional than accidental. Supporters argued this was overanalysis. Critics countered that overanalysis doesn't feel this collective without emotional consistency. Either way, the footage became a reference point, treated as material evidence rather than a fleeting moment. As scrutiny intensified, speculation surrounding Todd deepened. His continued lack of response fractured opinion yet again. Some viewed it as restraint or legal caution. Others believed it gave the growing narrative space to solidify. In online culture, silence is rarely interpreted as neutral. It's observed, measured, and woven into theories whether the person involved chooses participation or not. Anonymous accounts soon began inserting themselves into the conversation. Their messages were carefully worded, framed to suggest proximity without offering verification. Phrases like "people close to the situation" and "this goes deeper than you think" appeared repeatedly, spreading rapidly despite lacking substance. None provided details that could be confirmed, yet their presence added layers to the uncertainty. Conflicting claims stacked rather than cancelled one another, creating confusion instead of clarity. At the same time, longtime fans started revisiting past interactions between the people involved. Old interviews were rewatched, conversations replayed, and casual moments reinterpreted through a new lens. Statements that once felt inconsequential now appeared. Loaded. Trust, boundaries, and privacy, topics previously discussed in abstract, suddenly felt relevant. Memory reshaped itself to fit the story taking hold. What complicated the situation further was how behavior began replacing facts. People stopped asking what had been proven and started asking what felt logical. For many, Kandi's reaction didn't align with the belief that nothing was wrong. That disconnect became the engine driving the discussion forward. Whether accurate or not, emotional coherence mattered more than evidence. The debate grew angrier. Comment sections split sharply between those calling for empathy and those insisting that patterns were impossible to ignore. Attempts at nuance were often dismissed. The algorithm rewarded certainty, not restraint, pushing the loudest interpretations further into visibility. The more the story circulated, the harder it became to separate observation from assumption. Meanwhile, attention returned repeatedly to Kandi. Viewers noticed subtle shifts in her public presence, nothing overt, nothing definitive, but enough to invite interpretation. Her tone felt more controlled, her words more deliberate. Supporters called it professionalism. Critics saw guardedness. Both sides felt validated by the same behavior, underscoring how deeply subjective the conversation had become. As speculation escalated, the narrative evolved beyond the original rumor. It wasn't just about what may or may not have happened anymore. It became about timing, response, and perceived intention. Every delay was read as calculation. Every neutral action was framed as strategic. Once motives are assigned, even without evidence, reversal becomes difficult. A quieter unease also began to surface, discomfort with how rapidly a private dynamic might be unraveling in public without confirmation. Some viewers questioned whether they were watching truth emerge or projection multiply. But those voices struggled to gain traction against a narrative fueled by repetition and fixation. Online, familiarity can sometimes feel like proof. By the end of the second day, the story no longer needed new information to survive. It had reached a point where it sustained itself through interpretation alone. Silence, behavior, and timing had become the raw materials from which conclusions were constantly rebuilt. And the longer clarity remained absent, the heavier the atmosphere became. What unsettled many wasn't just the possibility of betrayal, but the realization that even if the truth emerged, it might arrive too late to correct the version already forming in the public mind. Perception doesn't wait for confirmation. It settles early and resists rewrites. The audience wasn't watching to learn anymore. They were watching to see who would speak first. And in a situation this charged, whoever breaks the silence risks defining the entire story, whether the definition is fair or not. And as anticipation continued to build, one truth became impossible to ignore. This situation had passed the point of being dismissed as a fleeting rumor. Something, whether fact, misinterpretation, or emotional coincidence, had shifted. And once that shift happens, the internet doesn't easily turn back. By the time the third phase of the situation unfolded, the atmosphere surrounding the story had grown noticeably heavier. The conversation online was no longer fueled by curiosity or even disbelief. It had shifted into expectation. Viewers weren't scrolling casually anymore. They were studying, watching timestamps, noticing absences, waiting for something to give. Every movement now felt amplified. A post shared at the wrong time. A caption that felt too neutral. A public appearance that didn't align with the seriousness people believed was unfolding behind the scenes. Ordinary behavior stopped reading as ordinary once suspicion entered the frame. Neutrality itself became suspicious. Kandi remained at the center of that scrutiny. Fans noticed that nothing she did was overt, yet nothing felt accidental either. Her words appeared measured. Her tone controlled. Moments where she redirected conversations instead of addressing lingering questions stood out more than anything she said directly. To supporters, this reflected composure under unfair pressure. To critics, it looked like restraint, the kind used when someone knows too much to speak freely. At the same time, interest in Todd Tucker intensified further. Viewers dissected past interviews, analyzing how he had previously spoken about trust, privacy, and partnership. None of the material revealed anything new, but placed alongside current silence, ordinary statements began to feel suspicious. Context reshaped memory, turning hindsight into justification for belief. The idea of a private confrontation quietly took hold, not as fact, but as a theory repeated often enough to feel plausible. People imagined a conversation away from the public eye, where difficult truths might have surfaced and emotions reached a breaking point. No one could verify such a moment existed, yet it became central to how many framed the story. Online, emotional logic often replaces factual logic when confirmation is absent. Speculation sharpened when pattern watching took over. Users tracked social media activity obsessively, noting which posts stayed up, which comments were disabled, and which names went unmentioned. Nothing seemed random anymore. Every delay was interpreted as strategy. Every decision was read as calculated, even when simpler explanations might have existed. As attention intensified, commentary channels added fuel carefully. Disclaimers were included, but the tension was still acknowledged. Even cautious analysis carried weight once repeated across enough feeds. Each retelling reinforced the sense that something significant was happening, even if no new information had surfaced. Arguments in comment sections became more rigid. Those urging patience were accused of denial. Those entertaining speculation were accused of cruelty. The The middle ground all but disappeared. The internet doesn't linger well in uncertainty. It prefers conclusions, even if they are temporary or built on assumption. Behind all the noise, a more uncomfortable realization emerged. Viewers began questioning whether they were witnessing truth or simply watching imagination layer itself over silence. The discomfort wasn't about scandal anymore. It was about the power of attention. How quickly a narrative can form and harden without confirmation, carried forward by collective belief rather than evidence. Still, anticipation only grew. Silence continued. No clear statement arrived. No definitive dismissal reset the discussion. In that space, the audience filled gaps freely. Silence began to feel like choice rather than absence. And once silence is treated as intention, it becomes almost impossible to separate restraint from admission. By this point, the story had taken on a life of its own. It no longer depended on facts to move forward. It advanced on interpretation alone. Each pause, each lack of response, each neutral action was folded neatly into the growing narrative. What unsettled many viewers most was the sense that when the truth finally emerged, whatever it was, it might not matter anymore. The version forming in public consciousness felt sturdy, built carefully from repetition rather than proof. And once belief settles, correction often struggles to keep pace. The unspoken fear lingered quietly, that this was no longer about what happened, but about when it would be acknowledged, and by whom. In moments like these, the first person to speak doesn't just share their side. They shape the outcome. A denial could sound defensive. An explanation could feel incomplete. Even silence had already become loud enough to be judged. As hours passed, the sense of inevitability deepened. Something would happen next. A response, a reaction, a leak, or a continued refusal to engage. Whatever came would be magnified instantly, absorbed into a story already in motion. The audience wasn't just watching anymore. They were bracing. Because once a story reaches this stage, it no longer asks whether something happened. It asks when the fallout will begin. And whatever comes next won't land on a blank slate. It will land on expectations already written. This was no longer a rumor trying to become a story. It was a story waiting for confirmation, or collapse. Before you click away, take a moment to really sit with everything that has unfolded so far. Stories like this don't gain this much momentum without a reason. They grow because thousands of people are noticing the same details, experiencing the same tension, and asking the same unanswered questions at the same time. Right now, nothing has been officially confirmed, and that uncertainty is exactly what has pulled so many viewers into this conversation. But now, we want to hear from you. Based on everything you've seen, the reactions, the silences, the timing, and the shifts in behavior, what does this situation feel like to you? Do you believe this is just another internet rumor that spiraled out of control? Or do you feel that there's something deeper happening behind the scenes that hasn't been addressed yet? Sometimes viewers notice patterns long before anyone is willing to speak on them, and your perspective matters here. Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. Not just what you think happened, but why you think this story feels different from others you've seen before. Conversations stay grounded when multiple perspectives are shared, and that's how we get closer to understanding what's really going on. If you've been following this story closely, make sure you hit the like button. It helps push this discussion to others who are paying attention and encourages more careful eyes on the details that might otherwise be missed. Sharing the video with someone who's already talking about the situation can also bring in new viewpoints and balance the conversation. And if you don't want to miss what comes next, subscribe and turn on notifications. Any reaction, statement, or development could shift the entire narrative. When that happens, we'll be here breaking it down clearly, calmly, and without hype, so you can decide for yourself what matters and what doesn't.